Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous crochet flower granny square, the Forget-Me-Not. This is a really great, easy crochet flower granny square to make even for beginners. We're just making popcorns just around for 2 rows. It turns into a square, super easy. And it's also part of the Bloomscape Cal 2023. We're making a new flower center every month, and at the end of the year, we're going to join them together to make a gorgeous blanket. And it's not too late to join the Cal. I will link the playlist with all of these tutorials in the description box down below, as well as in the comments. So go ahead and check out these other granny squares if you like to make them as well. If you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, it's available over on my website, secretyarnery.com, and you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. To make this crochet flower granny square, you will need yarn. I'm using 4 different shades of Favorite from Ice Yarns, but you could use any worsted weight acrylic. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. So let's get started. Starting with your center color, I'm using white. You can either do a chain 3 and make that into a ring, or you can do a magic ring. I like doing a magic ring just because it really closes in that center of your square. It really makes it nice and small. To make a magic ring, just hold your tail over the palm of your non-dominant hand and just pinch it down on your ring finger. Wrap your yarn around 2 fingers, making an X, and wrap it around your 3 fingers and just hold it with your thumb as well. Flip your hand over. You will have a short strand and a long strand. Take your crochet hook. You want to have your hook facing down in between your fingers. So underneath the short strand, on top of the long strand, and just drag that long strand underneath the short strand. Turn the hook towards yourself, slowly releasing your thumb a little bit just to give yourself some slack on that long strand. See how that long strand is moving a tiny bit? Point your hook away from yourself, grabbing that long strand, turning your hook and bringing it through that loop. Now you can pinch right there if you need to, just to bring your hook through that loop, and there is your magic ring. Chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now into the center of our ring, we want to be working over that tail. So right into the center of the ring, we're going to make 9 double crochets. Taking care to go over your tail, so 9 double crochets. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So now just count to make sure you made 9 double crochets. Your chain counts as your first double crochet in this pattern, so you'll have a total of 10 counting your chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now grab that tail and pull it nice and snug. You can pull it nice and hard if you are using a worsted weight acrylic. If you're using a cotton or a silk or a slippery yarn, be careful, you don't want to break that tail. Now into the top of our chain, we want to get 2 strands of that chain on the top of our hook. Just like that. We're going to slip stitch to join. 1 slip stitch and a chain 1 to secure our yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Now you want to go ahead and sew in this tail, this center tail from your magic ring. So give it a nice snug pull See, now that center is completely gone. So now go ahead and sew in this tail. I prefer a sharp tip needle. These are linked down below. These really help sew in your ends so it will never come out, because these needles go through the fibers, not in between them. So it really does secure your magic rings. So just quickly sew in this tail. We want to go around in one direction, and then we want to come back in the opposite direction. So there won't be any room to wiggle out. And then cut that tail off. And that finishes round 1. To start round 2, grab a loop of your new color, whatever color you're using for your petals. So I'm going to join into this stitch right here after the join, and that's just in case I did a wrong stitch count for the center, although we checked it, but just in case, I can always adjust where I'm putting that popcorn right where that join is. So slide your hook in, loop of that new color on your hook, bring it through, and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top of your work. We can work over it for a little bit, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So this counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn, and into the very same stitch, we're going to do 4 double crochets into the same stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now pull your hook up and take your hook out. Now we want to look for the top of our chain 2. Right here along the side, we want to go in, we want to have 2 strands of that stitch on the top of our hook. So pop your hook in, put that loop back on your hook, and just hold it on with your finger, just so it doesn't fall off the end of your hook, just like that. Turn your hook and bring it through that stitch. So there is our popcorn. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and now into the next stitch right here. We want to make another popcorn, and our popcorns are 5 double crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So pull your hook up, take your hook out. We want to look for that first double crochet we made into the stitch. So I like to just pop my finger in after that last popcorn we made, and that's going to show me right where that first stitch is, right here at the top. So that's where we want to put in our hook, into the top of that first double crochet. So pop your hook in, loop on your hook, just make sure it doesn't fall off your hook while you shrink it down. Turn your hook and bring it through that stitch to make your popcorn, and chain 2, 1 and 2. So now we're going to do that into the next stitch. So each stitch around is going to get a popcorn, so 10 popcorns all together. So into this next stitch, 5 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up. You want to have a bigger loop so we don't lose it by mistake. Find your 5 double crochets just by putting your finger in after that popcorn. We're going to put our hook right into that very first double crochet we made, right there. So pop your hook in, loop back on your hook, just making sure it doesn't fall off when you shrink your loop down. Turn your hook and bring it through that stitch and chain 2. So you can pause the video and keep working around 1 popcorn, so 5 double crochets into a popcorn, with a chain 2 into each stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get back closer to where we started. Are you enjoying yourself? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more fun content just like this. Now when you get back to where we started, I need to make 2 more popcorns. So this is why I like to join right after that join, or join my new yarn. So I'm going to make my last popcorn right here on the other side of that join, and I'm going to make my first popcorn before, just down into that chain. So right down in there. So wrap your yarn down into the chain. See, I'm not going into that little stitch at the top. I'm going right down into it, right down in there. So that's where I'm going to do my popcorn. So 5 double crochets and a popcorn into this chain. And then my last popcorn into this stitch right here. So we want to have a total of 10. There we go. So I've done my chain 2. Now we're going to slip stitch to join. But we're going to slip stitch way over here into that very first chain 1 we made, the other side of the popcorn. So we're going to jump straight over into that very first chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch to join. So slip stitch to join, and that finishes round 2. To start round 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into this very same stitch, 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull your hook up, making a bigger loop. And I would want to go into the top of that chain 2 and pull that up. That's why we did a chain 2, not a chain 3. A chain 3 would just be a little bit too big to make it look like a good popcorn. So we're going to go into the top of that chain 2, 2 strands on the top of your hook, loop back on your hook, and make your popcorn. So bring that stitch through and chain 2, 1 and 2. Now slide those stitches back. Slide your popcorn to the side. We want a bit more space in that very same spot. And we're going to do 5 more double crochets to make another popcorn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up and take your hook out. Put your hook into that very first stitch that we made. Loop back on your hook, shrink it down, bring it through, and chain 2, 1 and 2. So into the next space, we're going to do 2 popcorns. So 5 double crochets for our first popcorn. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up, making a bigger loop. Take your hook out and into that first double crochet right there. Slide your hook in, shrink your loop down, bring it through, and chain 2 to start. 1 and 2. Slide that popcorn back to give yourself some more space in that same spot, and 5 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull your hook up, take your hook out, find your first double crochet right there, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, loop of yarn back on your hook, and bring it through, and chain 2, 1 and 2. So now pause the video and keep working around, making a popcorn and a chain 2 and a popcorn and a chain 2 into each space all the way around, all the way until you get back to where we started. If you're enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up. When you get back around into this last spot, When you're making your popcorns, it's easier if you fold that last row down and just kind of hold it with your work, just so you don't be snagging at the top of those popcorns when you are making those last two. So just hold it down and then make your popcorns like that, and that'll help you work a little bit faster along and not be picking up yarn from the top of those popcorns there. So last two popcorns in the last space, and I'll meet you back. So I've done my chain two. Just make sure that you have 20 popcorns. You've done 2 into each space all the way around. So just make sure that you have the right number. And now we're going to slip stitch to join right after that first popcorn we made, right into that first chain. So on the other side of the popcorn. So insert your hook, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. To start round 4, grab your leaf color of yarn and insert your hook 6 spaces before your join. So here's our join. This counts as space 1, where our join is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Insert your hook into space number 6. That's just so we can work over that tail with some corner stitches. Loop of new yarn on your hook. Bring it through that space, slip stitch with both strands to join, dropping your tail and just holding it along the top edge of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. So this counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and 1 more double crochet into that same corner space. 1 double crochet. Chain 2, 1 and 2. We're going to skip the next space, and into the second space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skipping the next space and into the next, working over that tail. So we can just pull that tail forward so we can work over it. We're going to make 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, wrapping your yarn, and 2 more double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. So there is our corner. Chain 2, 1 and 2, skip a space into the second, 1 single crochet, chain 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip a space into the second. We're going to do our corners. Corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, chain 2. So there's my first 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 more double crochets into that same space, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, skipping the next space and into the second, 1 single crochet, chain 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skipping a space and into the next. We're going to do a corner. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, chain 2. So there's our first 2 double crochets, chain 2, into the same space, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2. Skip a space into the next, 1 single crochet, chain 2, into the next space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, and now we've worked around and we're right back to where we started. So we're going to skip a space, and into the space where we started, we're going to finish that corner with 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2, 1 and 2. Now we are going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 right there to join. So pop your hook into the top of that chain 2. You want 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 4. If you are turning your granny square into the Bloomscape cowl, you can go ahead and click on that link. That'll show you the next steps to turn this flower into the Bloomscape cowl square. And if you're turning it into a regular granny square, this is how you do it. So put your hook into that corner space, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the top edge of your work, and chain 2. 1 and 2. If you join your yarn in a different way, chain 3. This counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and into that same corner space, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Into this next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next space, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now into our corner space, we can just bring that tail forward so we can work over it for our corner, just holding along the top of your work. And when I do a corner, corners are 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets, all into the same corner space. So there's 2, here's 3, chain 2, into the same corner space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and into each of these spaces along the side, 3 double crochets into each of these chain 2 spaces. So you can pause the video and make 3 double crochets into each of these spaces, and I will meet you at the corner. When you reach that corner space, we're going to do another corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets all into the same corner space. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. And now you can pause the video and keep working around. 3 double crochets into each space along the side, and corners of 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into the corner space all the way around. And I'll meet you when we get back into the corner where we started. When you get back to the corner where you started, 3 double crochets into that same corner space. If you need some more room, you can just slide those stitches forward to give yourself some more space to work flat along that chain. Wrap your yarn, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you're going to keep going with this yarn color, we're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet into the top of this chain to join. A single crochet to join. That is if you're going to keep going with the same color. So 1 single crochet to join, and then just hold that corner space open with your finger and thumb, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. You'll turn your work and make 2 double crochets into that same corner space. 1 and 2, and then jump straight over into the next space and make your 3 double crochets. If you're new to crochet, you probably want to pop a stitch marker right there to mark this corner when you're coming around. And if you're doing the Bloomscape cowl, you're still going to do your chain 1 and single crochet to join with your chain 3, and you're just going to slide your hook right here to make your single crochet. So that's if you're doing the Bloomscape cowl. And if you're finishing off your square or changing yarn color, you'll join with a chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch to the top of this chain to join. So that's when you're finished or changing color. So slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Sew in your tails and you're finished. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.